Finding random frames in Avatar: The Way of Water until it's ugly. Is this even possible? I don't know. We'll find out. 1, 2, 3. Wow, that shot is amazing. Now, we could go into all the technical advances that were made from the first movie to the second one, but let's be honest, the main reason that Avatar 2 looks better than Avatar 1 is because they made the characters hotter. We might have started with the best shot in the movie. It's all downhill from here. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, it looks cool. James Cameron is back at it again with his Fusion 3D camera system. And if you didn't watch my video on the first Avatar movie, the Fusion 3D camera system is a system that James Cameron and his colleagues came up with that essentially links two cameras together, recording in a way to mimic the human eye in the way that the interlocular distance between the eyes helps to create depth perception. This time, the filmmakers used two Sony Venice cameras. By the way, am I the only one who doesn't like to watch movies in 3D? I think the 3D effects in almost every single movie make the green screen and the CGI effects really stand out because it separates the subject from the background even more so. Let me know in the comments if you also think that. Not ugly. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, really cool. Obviously, sometimes they had to shoot real human characters alongside of these CGI characters who were pre-recorded by actors in mocap suits, and every time they did something like this where they had to combine practical and CGI, they had to create a practical set. Here's what that would have looked like. The blue screen here would have been filled in with CGI. Honestly, they could have saved a lot of money if they just didn't have the spider character, because he's like the only human character they had to build sets around for most of the scenes in this movie. And for other reasons, I don't think that they should have had this character in the film. Not ugly. 1, 2, 3. You know, another thing I don't like when watching movies is when the frame rate is too high. Sorry, I just saw Avatar 3 and it was in 3D and 48 frames per second. And I am no one to question James Cameron and his filmmaking decisions, but that is just something I don't find visually appealing. Call me an old-fashioned fuddy-duddy, but films are supposed to be 24 frames per second, not 48 frames, because it looks too smooth, especially when you're using a lot of CGI. To me, it looks more like a video game. It emphasizes the video gamey feel of the CGI. Anyway, I mentioned that for this shot because it looks a little low light, and one of the ways that they were able to achieve 48 frames per second when filming this movie was because of the low light capabilities of the Sony Venice cameras. When you film more frames per second, that essentially means that the sensor for the camera has less time per frame to expose the shot. And so the more frames per second you film, the more exposure you need. And Sony cameras are great at being able to deliver extra exposure in terms of higher base ISO without much noise. Not ugly. 1, 2, 3. Wow, again, the close-ups of this movie are stunning. I love that they used a very bright light in order to mimic a moonlight situation, just giving her this nice edge light, and it is positioned in such a way that it gives us texture with the water droplets on her skin. Even in this part of the movie, James Cameron is showing off his new water CGI technology. So not ugly. 1, 2, 3. Again, gorgeous. Admire the texture of their skin. Look at the veins and the pores in this man's hand, who is not a real man. It is absolutely impressive. And I know it's obvious, but The Way of Water looks 5 times better than the original Avatar movie, and I can't imagine what Avatar 4 and 5 are gonna look like in 2039. Not ugly. 1, 2, 3. Okay, yeah, it's pretty nice. One thing I've specifically noticed about the lighting choices in The Way of Water versus the first Avatar movie is that in The Way of Water, the lighting looks a lot better in the military bases than it did in the first one. And I think this primarily has to do with the fact that The Way of Water uses more LED lights because they were more readily available than they were in 2009, or whenever they actually shot the first Avatar movie. Specifically in these scenes, they used RGBTD ribbon LED practicals, as well as Astera Helios and Titan tubes. So not ugly. 1, 2, 3. I think some of the best shots in this movie are when the camera like dips below the water and you can see stuff above the water and below the water at the same time. But you know, I just realized that when I first watched this movie, I thought that all of the water effects in this film were CGI. And so I was very impressed. I was like, wow, that water looks like real water. But apparently, after doing my research, a lot of the water is just real water. They filmed in real water. Specifically, they filmed most of the water sequences on stage 18 in Manhattan Beach, California, in a 15 by 15 by 15 foot tank. I don't know if that makes this movie less impressive in terms of its CGI, but just know that, you know, a lot of the water's real. Definitely not ugly. 1, 2, 3. Again, another great close-up. One of the main reasons I think this shot is beautiful is because of the color palette. The blues of the ocean harmonize with the skin color of our character, creating emphasis where color and contrast pop. And the lighting here, even if it was done in visual effects work, is pretty fantastic, and it should be used as an example for any time you go out into the sun and shoot actual footage. The sun is positioned behind her and to the side, avoiding harsh shadows on her face. And I'd be willing to bet that if I scrub through this section, they are going to be using the same lighting setup for almost every close-up like that. See, as we can see here, sun is behind him to the side. Here we go, same thing here. Sun, soft, sun, soft. The sun's a little bit more frontal in this one, but you still aren't getting any harsh shadows on her face. If you look down here at her necklace, you are getting these harsh shadows on her necklace, which is kind of lined up with her face. So you would expect to be getting those same shadows with her nose. You can see there's almost a hard line here, implying that there's some kind of flag being utilized above her. So maybe, I'm not sure exactly how these programs work when it comes to VFX lighting, but it looks like they're blocking off the sun from this side of her face somehow, and just in order to create nicer shadows. Anyway, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, pretty cool. So again, this shot was most likely filmed with an actor in a mocap suit in that big water tank that we spoke of earlier. And the way they had to light that tank of water was by using 60 Airy Sky Panel S60Cs over top of the tank. This created high levels of ambient lighting, but it also created a lot of reflections in the water. And those reflections got in the way of the mocap suits. If you remember from my previous video, a mocap suit works by reflecting infrared light back to a camera sensor, and then it uses that data in a program to create a skeleton for a CGI character. But if you have reflections that are interfering with those reflections on the mocap suit, then it's not going to work quite as well. So they had to fix this by covering the entire surface of the water with a different kind of plastic ball that let light through it while eliminating the reflections. Don't ask me how this works or how they figured it out. It's way above my pay grade. 1, 2, 3. It's a pretty gorgeous shot. Here we see a typical lighting technique that you will see in a lot of live action movies, where if you are filming indoors and there are windows or doors to that room you are filming in, the light is motivated by a strong light from outside and not necessarily from practicals inside. So the light is motivated almost entirely from the sun shining through this hole and then bouncing and reflecting off of the floor and the walls around them. Another thing they had to do when filming real people and not real people was they had to make sure the eye lines of the characters matched. When this character looks up at this character, he needs to know exactly where to look at all times. And what they did to solve this problem is kind of crazy to me. In layman's terms, they hung small HD monitors with Bluetooth speakers on cables that ran throughout the set. This monitor was then programmed to move along the cable in perfect sync with the pre-recorded performances that they had filmed with the mocap suits earlier. These monitors were rigged to move in the exact positions that the faces of the characters would be on screen. All of this is insanely technical, and I can't imagine how they did it. So, not ugly. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, pretty great looking shot. Another problem they had to solve on this set was that the mocap suits they used in the first film didn't actually work in the water, because traditional mocap cameras emit infrared light that is supposed to reflect off of the mocap suits and give information back to the camera. But water absorbs the infrared light very quickly. So they had to program these cameras to emit a different wavelength of light close to ultraviolet light instead of infrared, and that allowed the light to move through the water unimpeded. Again, I am not a scientist, so don't ask me how that works. So, not ugly. 1, 2, 3. That was cool. That was really cool. Bro is just aura farming right now. Also, one thing about the shot is that I kind of like the lens flares here, but I don't think they make technical sense with the kinds of lenses they were using for this film, because they were not using anamorphic lenses for this film. And this is the type of lens flare, this horizontal skinny lens flare. That's kind of a lens flare you would see typically on anamorphic lenses. So this is most likely a fake lens flare, but it works. Don't get too technical about it. Don't get too pedantic about your image. Just make it look cool. Next shot. 1, 2, 3. It's pretty amazing. Again, anytime we are working with the orange and blue/teal color palette, we are playing with fire, no pun intended. One of the cool things they did for these scenes was that they used 10x10 LED screens with fire videos playing on them reflected into a 40-foot mirror in order to create the reflections on the water you can see here. So this is probably a real reflection, while the fire back here is CGI. Also, as far as the lighting pattern on her face goes, I really like it when you kind of sandwich a face in with two back/side lights like this. I don't know, it just creates a nice pattern for me from light to dark to light. It's not ugly. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, this is a cool shot. Another fun fact about this film is that for scenes like this where they were shooting mocap suits, they actually had a team of 16 different people with cameras filming shots of those people in the mocap suits just for reference so that they could get the performances exactly right in the VFX process. Not ugly, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, pretty monochrome image, not much contrast or texture going on, but it looks okay. No, it looks okay. Another fun fact about the filming of Avatar is that in the first movie, they did have some underwater scenes, but they filmed those scenes entirely different than they filmed the underwater scenes in Avatar 2. In the first movie, they did something called dry for wet filming, which means they filmed their actors dry. They didn't actually put them in the water. Instead, they hung them on cables and suspended them in the air as they acted like they were underwater. So let's go faster. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, fine. 1, 2, 3. That's cool. Love that light. Creating the light. Yeah, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, that's fine. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, that's cool. 1, 2, 3. That's the credits. 1, 2, 3. That's a really nice shot. I love that. I love all of the texture you're getting from the reflections on the water here. That's pretty great. 1, 2, 3. Man, I also think that the close-ups of the hands in this movie are some of the best looking shots. Again, I don't know what it is, but the close-ups in the Avatar movies look so good to me, while some of the wider shots don't look near as good. I don't know if it's just because they have more opportunity to add details to close-ups like this. Just gonna scrub through. Look at those hands. I mean, those hands look real. I wouldn't be surprised if they just painted someone's hands blue there. I don't, like, is that really just all CGI? That's crazy. 1, 2, 3. Not the best framing, but I don't think it's ugly. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, it's cool. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, it's cool. 1, 2, 3. Butt shot.